Got it. And perfect. All right, everyone, welcome. I am back. This has just been so much fun. I've been having a ball with these interviews. I hope you guys have been having fun too. If somebody could just let me know how the sound is, if the sound is uh, working correctly. Not one. Allie, can you say something?
Yes, I have a dog and I have a cat and I have another cat and I have another cat. Um,
It's the kitty cat
sound check.
parade.
Yeah,
Wait, aren't you a Leo?
I am a cat too. Yeah, I told you before coming here, I ate something and like a feline, I'm like, I need a nap. I need a nap. So it was pretty difficult, but I made it happen.
Oh my gosh, you're the best. Thank you. Oh, Allison, thank you. Thanks for letting us know that the sound was working well. Awesome. Well, we'll just dive right in then. What a treat. Welcome, everyone. I am thrilled to be with you all for our final interview for Shadow Work Week. If you're just catching it, it's just your first video, it's awesome to hang out with you. My name is Kay Moon. I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer, and I am your host for Shadow Work Week, a week filled with interviews and conversations with healers, mediums, psychics, and coaches, all about how you can work with and heal your own shadow energy and understand the shadow energy of the people that you love. I have one more treat for you, and it is tomorrow. It won't be an interview, but it will be a live healing with Lana, healer medicine woman. She'll be with us, I believe, don't quote me, I think it's 7 o'clock Eastern. But join us for a live healing. Be prepared with a cozy cup of tea. Be ready to stretch out, lay down, receive a transmission to help integrate the shadow. But today I am joined for my final interview by Allie from Allie's Tarot, which I've just been so pumped that she decided to do this interview. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to paste Allie's link in a moment. She's got a wonderful YouTube channel where she publishes readings every week for all 12 signs to help you tap into the energy of the week and understand what you're working with, and in your love connections, what other people may be bringing to the table, and the spiritual guidance and connection between you both. Allie is a spiritual life coach. She is a holy fire Karuna Reiki master and an animal Reiki master. After the loss of her fiance and her father, she found herself truck driving all over the US. And through a series of, we would say, very fortunate events, she began to work with plant medicine for a few years to better understand her soul, her life path, and integrate her own shadow. And we're going to talk about some of that. Through the process, Allie moved into what many would call a dark night of the soul. It was a complete ego death that allowed her to be and free her truest self. That breakdown became a breakthrough as she reached that lowest point. And at that moment, she gave up on deciding to change her life. But what she later realized was that she was actually just giving up control. About a month later, she launched her YouTube channel, Reading Tarot. It's been a fast growth over on that channel, and it gave her the opportunity to quit her job, truck driving, within 2 months. With her renewed investment in her growth, she graduated from her coaching program at the Divine Intelligence Institute. She's graduated from the Relationship Reinvented coaching program with Lee and Sherry, whom many of you met yesterday, and has gone on to become a Holy Fire Karuna Reiki Master and Animal Reiki Master. Her beloved cats and dog can be seen on her weekly updates on Allie's Tarot on YouTube. We might be graced by their presence momentarily, where they frequently assist with the reading by providing extra love as only our pet familiars can. Welcome, everyone. Please hit that like button, especially if you know you love Allie, you want this content to circulate. It is such a treat to be here with you all. Allie, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for being here. And before I say anything else, pardon my reactions if you see any on the screen, because I'm using an iPad. And I just said to Kane, I feel like I'm 80 years old, I don't know how to use this thing. And this program keeps on reacting for me, and I'm like, I don't want those reactions. But so if you see any of that, it's not me. It could be me, actually. It could be me. But yeah.
Oh,
So
too funny. Well, we love you and we love all the reactions. We'll take all of them. Let's go
okay.
ahead and dive into the questions for today. Can you talk to us about that transitional moment in your own shadow work journey?
I have one very important one that one I actually noticed the shadow. Because we're always kind of working through our shadow, but sometimes we can't quite identify it as that. But that one was like, oh man, here I am meeting my shadow face to face. I was bringing up the plant medicine to authoritative figure. I would say it is somebody that I respect a lot, somebody that means a lot to me and has contributed to my growth. And I brought that in as, like a suggestion of healing. That's what worked for me. And I'm like, this is a tool that I use. The response I got to that was so, the words used were not nasty, but all I could hear was F off, you're worth nothing, you don't know nothing. I'm like, oh man. And then my shadow started creeping and I felt like my body was trembling. I felt like I wanted to just pick up the table, throw it out, and just get out of the room. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I would normally do. And then I stepped into the observer mode and I watched my reaction and what was building up in my body. And I'm like, this is a pattern. This is something that I would normally do. Not with the table thing. I'm not that dramatic, but I'm like, this is what I would normally do, storm out of a room just because my belief system is being attacked, my self-worth is being attacked. And I'm like stepping back and I'm looking at all of that and I'm like, hi, shadow. And then we just stood there for a minute and I'm like, let's just sit with this. Let's for once just sit with this. Let's not react like we usually do. Let's just sit with this, see what happens. And it was the most uncomfortable thing ever that I did. And I felt it throughout my body. I felt it through it. But I was just sitting there with it. And I'm like, I changed something right now. I'm changing something right now. And at the end of the day, I felt like, oh my God. So the way I see it basically is our own patterns, repetitive patterns, that are not quite beneficial to us. They're not quite healthy a lot of the times. And I felt like that was an important one. When I take something as kind of brushing off to my core beliefs or self-worth and all of that, instead of just kind of retaliating, I'm like, let's just sit with it and let's just kind of see if we can just stand still through that. And let's see if that creates something for me personally and for the situation. And it did. It changed the situation a lot. And by the end of the discussion, we were like, everything settled down. In me especially, I don't think the tension was quite up. I think I took it up by believing that and by taking that in like, oh, but it did. And I understood a lot of things, especially facing your own shadow, facing it and being with it present. And just, I love how the observer mode is very helpful a lot during these situations. How you just kind of take yourself back and just observe how you react to things, how you respond to things, and then kind of get it that I'm doing this a lot. What's this about? And then that might help a lot. To me, it did, at least. So that was one
Wow.
of the biggest examples for me.
A couple of questions about that, if you wouldn't mind
Yeah.
sharing. How, when you're in a moment of such extreme intensity, because I know when I go to those places where when I personally feel attacked, it's almost like there's so much pressure coming from inside me. My ears pretty much shut. My
Mm-hmm.
head gets hot, like the biological sensations go so haywire
Mm-hmm.
that like I go into fight or flight. Either I have to exit the situation or I need to shut it down. How did you manage the biological impulse to react? Like, what did you do that slowed things down?
I kind of forced myself to react different, to be like, let's not react as usual. Let's breathe. I didn't breathe like, oh, hold on, you're saying what you're saying. And I'm like sitting here and hold on, let's calm down. It was kind of like an internal kind of journey through grounding myself through that, just to see if I'm able to sit through that. It was kind of like I challenged myself. Let's see if I can do it different. And I could do it. It was challenging and it's hard and it's not going to work out every time, because I've had other times when I tried and I failed. But sometimes when it works, think of it as having two of me at the same time, the one that creates all of that for the body and the other one that's kind of sitting through what's going on and not reacting to it, not responding to it, just kind of creating space for this one to settle down. So it's like, to me, that's kind of how it felt.
Wow. Okay. And so you said it changed things for the circumstance. How? What path was it on, and then where did it end up?
Well, the path that I had it, well, the shadow had it planned, was a table being thrown off and a door probably broken. Because when I get Leo mode, my friends laugh about that all the time. Oh, watch out, she's in Leo mode. I don't do that. I never do that. Like, it would take a lot for me to get to that point, but I could see it in my head that that's where it was going. And the path would have been for me to bail on, I was in the middle of a program there, but I wouldn't have given a damn. Like, I would have just walked away and just kind of forgot all about it. I would have driven back home and that's it. I would have given up on it. Now, what that led me into was a more calmer, especially towards the end of the discussion. Now, I took that home and I worked a lot with it by the end of the day. But towards the end of what was actually going on, things settled down on both sides. I could express my opinion on that, my response to that, my calm response to that. And then it was, it felt like even the relationship between us got even stronger with that, because it was kind of like a mutual respect kind of thing that happened.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow. And so it did feel like the relationship continued, but it went to a better place.
Exactly.
Wow. Observer mode.
Yeah, I love
Note
that.
to self. Okay. 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 What's interesting about listening to your readings is that frequently, as we listen, we get to peek into observer mode. We get the opportunity to experience that for ourselves through you. A lot of people turn to tarot to seek information about other people, but you seem to use it to reveal information about the self,
Oh
the
yeah.
self, the self who's watching the video, etc. Were you doing that for yourself before you started the channel, like looking for information about you with tarot?
Yeah, because I kind of started with let me look into someone else, and I'm like, I don't think that's the issue. I don't think I want to know that. Like, I want to know what the hell is going on here, because I have no idea. I'm all over the place and I want to know about somebody else, really. So the when I started my channel, I also started the coaching program and everything about coaching. And I'm like, how can I actually put those two together? Because I feel like it would be very beneficial for someone to get to know themselves first before they start to get to know someone else. So that was my main intention when I started the channel. I feel like I took it in that place, or at least I tried. And I kind of get the sense again that it's more important to know your reaction to another person and you in front of another energy. And then once you do that, I feel like you don't even need anything else to get to know, or to get to accept, or to get to deal with another energy, because it's easier that way. Once you're aligned, you kind of pick it up in an instant. To me, that's kind of how I see it.
Interesting. Okay. I love that, because the way you read, you always start off like, okay, let's check in. Like, what are they bringing to the situation energetically? What are you bringing? And what is the universe bringing?
The
Right.
universe usually brings in the truth, and I'm like, uh-oh, got you guys. The universe kind of puts you on front lines here for me to figure out what the hell is going on exactly. So I kind of
Mm,
love the universe when it comes in, because it's like your version, their version, and I'm like the truth. Okay, there it is.
right? So
Yeah.
are there always these mirroring energies, or sometimes are people just like on two completely different like vibrations and frequencies?
Most of the times they are mirroring. But a lot of the times I did notice that if one is in this frequency and one is in this one, it's like it's a mismatch. Something is not working out in there. And it doesn't mean that those energies can never work out. It means that maybe today someone is a step higher within their energy, and this one kind of stayed there or got even higher. So it's, to me, it feels like no, they're not quite, face to face there to deal with one another. So that to me
Fascinating.
is not necessarily mirroring, but it could still bring beneficial information about, at least acceptance. Like we all have our journeys and we all have our pace in our journeys. So it's like, oh, okay, so they're off a little bit, or I'm off a little bit compared to them, you know?
Wow. Okay. I love it. I love it. It just because there's a lot of illumination there, right? It underneath what you've said is this context of anyone that we're dealing actively with in our world who's showing up and causing us to question. There is something there for us to learn about ourselves. If it wasn't, that person wouldn't even be in our world at the moment at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. So I'm curious, how might people, if they kind of wanted to take on the self-inquiry that you began your process with, how would they use tarot to begin to identify their own shadow or their own mirror? Are there questions you might suggest for self-reflection, maybe spreads or even specific cards you want people to kind of pay attention to?
There's many ways, as you know, to figure those aspects out. Um, the way I do it, I go with spreads that I usually create, but I look at a bunch of spreads, and if something makes sense to me, I'm gonna pick it up for me and I'm gonna use that one. Um, a lot of the times, I kind of look at several spreads and I use the combination of those somehow, or I create my own where it's kind of like a little bit of here, a little bit of here, a little bit of here. Um, but in terms of cards and spreads and all of that, just go with your gut, your intuition. In terms of reading too, especially, whatever feels right for you. In terms of the cards that, well, to me at least, the one that it's kind of like a bulb saying shadow, um, it's the moon for some reason, because the moon reflects our shadow. Like that's the only thing we can see in the nighttime when the moon is up. We can't see much. So to me, that's the one that like, oh, okay, so there's something in here. And that's the one that always gives me a hard time explaining, because I'm like, how the hell do I tell them what I see? Because they're going to get upset. They're going to run away, because everybody, everybody that's kind of being called off on their shadow, especially, they don't want to hear that. Who wants to hear that? I didn't. I don't still react ugly to it. But then I'm like, okay, shadow, you know?
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, very good. Very good. It's always very helpful. Um, how did you come to recognize, like, if you could be more specific about that, these transitional moments, right? You had this moment where you lost your father, you lost your fiance, you're driving this truck, you start to explore plant medicine. Somewhere in there, you find tarot, you start to ask questions. Um, how did you start to see your own patterns? Because I feel like the hardest thing is to see like what's right in front of our face. Like it's
Yeah,
so hard to see
the
ourselves
obvious.
accurately and clearly, like the way other people are experiencing us. So how, in using tarot, did you come to like get that light bulb? Oh, this is how I'm showing up in this situation. Or maybe it wasn't with tarot, maybe it was something else.
It's kind of like a combo of the plant medicine and tarot. Hold on, she's coming. She wants in.
Oh,
She
was it
wants.
a cat that helped you? Do tell.
Apparently, was it you? uh, she's the new member, Juno. I'm sure you're appreciating the name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was a combo of both. And I feel like every tool that we use kind of has the same structure to it. Like, okay, you do the work with the tool, whatever tool you feel guided to use. Then you kind of get these insights, these, okay, so this is what it is, and this is what it is, and this is what people don't usually do is allow themselves time to integrate that whole, because yeah, you got it, but how do you apply it to your own life? You know, you got to allow yourself that time for things to settle down, for you to start integrating things slowly but surely. So I feel like for me, it was a combo. And I feel like the both of them, plant medicine and tarot, bring in kind of the same concept. It's interesting with tarot because I do it a lot for others rather than me. But every time I do it for others, I feel like I'm speaking from me, from my perspective, from my experiences. So it's like, oh, so this is happening for them, and the energies that are available are these, but they're doing this. I do that. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's kind of how I take it from tarot in terms of, I feel like it's easier to do it for others because, you know, you're not involved. But then it kind of reflects back to you, and we're going back to the mirroring aspect. I don't know, for some reason I feel like it's easier to do it for others. Maybe you're cheating yourself out of that, but then I do it for myself too, because when I do it for myself, the difference is that I'm very critical, and we tend to be, as human beings, we tend to be like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I suck. When I do it for others, I tend to be, again, the observer mode, neutral. I'm like, okay, so this is what's happening, these are the energies, and this is what they're doing. And my frustration with that is, oh man, how do they not see it? And I get to see it when I see that for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what it is for me. Observer mode again. There's no, like, I'm going to fall into that answer over and over again, I feel like.
Which makes total sense and leads us to our next question, really, because there is something to it. Once you see it, you can actually do something about it. But if you can't see it, you're oblivious. You can't actually do anything. So I'm curious, how did you yourself start to move past seeing the shadow in yourself to healing the shadow or integrating and embracing it? Was it in the coaching program? Like, was it something else that allowed you to start the process of healing?
It depends. I feel like sometimes we're not ready to see it. For like, I knew I had a mom issue somewhere. I'm like, I know it's there. I know it's there. And I'm like, the more I force myself to look into it, to be like, where is it? Where is it? I can't find it. It felt like, no. And sometimes I touched on it and I was like, I healed it. And then, 5 minutes later, I'm like, shit, that was not it. And then I figure that we're not always ready to see it. As much as we try, we're not always ready. The experiences we've had, the whatever kind of brought us to that moment, maybe we're not supposed to see it then. Maybe it's related to something else that's going to show up along the way. And that to me was another lesson of acceptance, basically, because I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll just drop this mom thing. And whenever it shows up, it shows up. And it did. The minute you drop it, ironically, it shows up. Because if you're kind of looking from here and you're like, the universe is not going to reveal anything to you. So sometimes it's that. Other times, in order to identify it, do you want me to say observer mode? No, you don't. Not observer mode, but just take a break. Just take a break and clear your mind and try to be as much as you can in the present moment. It'll reveal itself. The more you keep yourself present with what is and what's shown up in front of you, rather than let me focus on the past, on the future, on the lefts and rights of life, and on everything that's going on that has nothing to do with me, but let me just, it's a way to keep your mind busy. And sometimes your mind needs a freaking rest. And I feel like it's probably the best exercise to allow for your own shit to come out, basically, is to be present with everything that's going on around you. And that'll come out because it'll try to disturb you in your awareness. So whatever feels disturbing at some point, it's like, something's here. It's uncomfortable. Something wants to come up. So I feel like that would be one of the probably the easiest exercises to get there, to allow it to come in.
Got it. Very nice. Okay. Um, so plant medicine, my friend.
Told you I could talk about this all day.
I'll stop you when we have to move into listener Q&A, but it sounds like you're a phenomenal proponent of it. Like it's helped you, it's really served you. I think you did 2 years of intensive plant medicine work, yes?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I think a little more than that, but yeah.
Wow.
Compressed, it would be 2 years.
Now, how did plant medicine help you? What did it do? What did it give you that you didn't have access to without it?
Actually, plant medicine showed me a lot of my shadow. A lot of,
Ooh.
yeah. And I started laughing at it like crazy. I'm like, am I really doing these things? I can't believe I'm doing these things. And then I started to accept them and embrace them and laugh and be happy about the acceptance of them. There's definitely all sorts of other tools that can be used that can get you in that place. Now, what this does, it gets you there faster. And the way I got to do it, you know me, I don't think about things. I just go by instinct. And I bother a lot of people with that because I'm like, yeah, I want that. And then I get it. And then people are like, how? That's how I work. So with this, I kind of went by science. I didn't know what it was. I never would even wanted to try nothing. But at some point, 2 people that were attending that have nothing to do with one another, barely, well, one of them is one of my best friends, but the other one I barely even knew. They had a dream about me in the same night. My best friend, 2 dreams of me, the other one dream of me. And I'm like, I took that as a sign. I'm like, the both of you are participating in this thing, which I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to go check it out. Let's see what it is. And then I was blown away because it forces you to release control. And it's quite interesting because when I was forced by life to release control 2 years later, I didn't want to do it. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to release control. I didn't know. I thought I was abandoning my life, as you said, like I'm going to be a truck driver all my life and I'm going to die driving a truck. I don't care. And the universe had other plans. And I'm like, oh, okay. But then I released control when I said, I don't care about my life. I actually didn't care about having control over my life. And I learned that over and over and over again through the plant medicine. But I didn't apply it apparently until I was forced to. So it's very interesting. I avoid talking too much about it because I want for whoever goes there and has this experience to not have any expectations built up by other people's stories. But I can say that for me, it was very healing and very, very, very everything, basically. It opened up a lot of doors for me and it showed me actually my life as it is now. I just didn't have any clue. I saw the energy of it because that's what I started to manifest during my ceremonies and all of that. But I had no idea that it was going to look like this.
So for those who are unfamiliar with plant medicine, how would you define it?
It's very hard in the spiritual community. I told you, it's half. It's spread. People are like, oh, it's a tea, it's a drug, it's a what is it? It is a tea based on plants from the Amazon, and it opens your third eye like big. I try not to swear, but I'm like sometimes it might come out.
All good.
It sends you there in contact with your true self, with your soul, quite fast. And it kind of forces you to release control. That's why a lot of people don't want to do it. They're like, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if, I feel like maybe everybody should try it at least once, and they can figure out if it's for them or not. For some people, from my own experience, I've noticed that maybe it's not the right path. Maybe they're not ready. Again, as every other experience, maybe they're not ready at that time that they're trying. I don't know. The thing in there is that you get all of this information, all of these visions or whatever you're getting about self. But the images and everything that shows up for you in there, you have to put them together. And a lot of people don't interpret necessarily those messages and those visions correctly, or it takes them a very long time to put them together in the correct way that would heal them. You know, because there's no correct way, there's the way that would heal them, that would work for them. So it could be very tricky in that way. So that's why integration after that is very important. Allow yourself time for those messages to settle and for the connections to be made, basically.
Mm. And so would you say that it's best done along, because it sounds like your coaching practice, or like going into coaching the program and doing the plant medicine, like those two things coincided. So there was like a way to really start to integrate the messages in a way that brought you to more truth for yourself. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. It's like I worked with the plant medicine, then I kind of stopped, and then coaching, tarot, all of everything kind of came together. I would say that was my integration process, actually.
Really?
Yeah, how these things came together, because I started to allow them to come in. I didn't chase them. Yeah, maybe I thought it sometimes. Someone told me I would be good as a coach. Oh, let me look into that. And then it kind of tied itself up together, kind of beautiful in the way that I allowed it. Long story, it was the final year that coaches were trained in that program, and I was like really at the limit of not being able to get in, but I got in. And just because I didn't resist it, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's open, and that works out, and let me allow myself to go with whatever's happening, whatever's being offered here, and let's see what happens. And I got to the place of acceptance of whatever's happening. I don't know if you read the book, The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
It's here I go reacting with my yay. I see it on my screen. I don't know if people can see it, but it's funny. See this?
I see the thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Whatever, technology. So that's kind of what I did. I kind of allowed whatever was coming in, and I kind of went with it and see what happens, instead of rejecting it, instead of being like, oh, but this is not matching this one and this one and this one, and then let's complicate it even more and let's see what. Now it all I kind of feel like I started flowing with whatever was happening after I released the idea that I'm going to be a truck driver for the rest of my life. I'm going to die of cancer. That was my plan.
That was your storyline for yourself?
Yeah, that was my plan. I'm like,
Why
universe, leave me alone.
was that the storyline? Like, why were you like, I can never change this, leave me alone, universe?
Because at that point, it felt like the universe was pushing into a corner big time. Like I said,
How so?
I started the manifestation process quite a while before, about a year before this, of I want to do this with my life, or I want to do that, and I want to be of service. And then I had a vision, even in ceremony, where I was shown my worth, and I'm like, man, if everybody could see this, we would have a freaking amazing world for themselves. And at that time, I knew that I was supposed to do something in this lifetime where somehow help others, help myself, but help others through that. Like contribute somehow. I was shown that very clearly. I just didn't know how it would look like. So my manifestation process started back then. And at this point, and I'm going to throw it out there because people are probably wondering, why am I hanging out with twins? I'm also a twin. So that kind of brought me in it dumped me on my ass and kind of disintegrated me big time. And the universe was cornering me, like, what are you going to do now? Are you going to go lower than that? Or are you going to step onto your path, the one that's kind of right in front of you? And I'm like, I'm going to be a truck driver and I'm going to die of cancer and I'm going to smoke all my life and destroy myself. And I'm going to do this and that and the other. Universe, what are you going to do about that? And the universe replied, because I heard my pinky right after I said that. And right after, I swear to God, the answers I got, well, the first one was love. And then I heard my pinky and I'm like, And the minute I actually heard this big time because it got purple, and my nail actually ended up falling off. And I couldn't feel it because of the shock, but when I started to feel it, I laid down in the truck. I pulled the truck over because I was dizzy. So I laid down, and in that moment on the truck's floor, with Oscar sniffing me like, are you okay? Are you okay? And that's when I felt the release. I'm like, I'm giving myself into life. Like whatever comes out, I'll take it. And the next day, I think I signed up for tarot classes because I just allowed my body, my hands, me to respond to everything that was happening. And then I share this, tarot classes. And I heard it before, but I never responded. But this time around, it's like I felt my hand going after the phone to sign up. And I'm like, okay, go, dude, you're allowed to. And then soon after that, everything kind of fell into place because I didn't resist anymore. I gave up control and the mind interfering and arguing with the universe. I'm like, the universe got to know better than me. I'm not going to fight with it anymore. Apparently it did.
You're right. Oh, it's such a gift. I love that. Okay. It's hard. It's hard to give up that control. It is so hard. I'm not even a fixed sign like a Leo, but it's so hard.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very hard.
man. I got a fixed moon though. So,
Oh.
I'm kind of, I might, maybe I need some plant medicine to help me sort it out.
It does help. It does help, especially releasing control, because otherwise you would get tortured in there. It's not a nice experience. If you don't release that control, it's really not nice until you're like, okay, take it. Just leave me alone.
Yeah. Why do you think some people live their life kind of at odds with that flow of life? And there are other people on the other end of the spectrum like you, where there's just kind of zero static between yourself and a manifestation.
I recognize that it's hard for it's the false sense of control that we think we have over, I don't know, where it's like people are chasing the sense of control, like, and then something tragic happens and they realize they're like, I have control over nothing. They realize that spark of truth of, I couldn't have controlled this to happen any other way. Yeah, I wanted to, but it's not up to me. For example, when someone's dying or someone, like tragic events, and it's like, as much as you want control over that, you don't have it. And it's proven to you over and over again. And you get that aha moment, but then you kind of perpetuate into the whole sense of, let me get control back. You still don't have it. So it's hard for people to step back from that. And it's the mind. It's the mind that keeps you in there, in that illusion. And if you step out of the mind and into the present, you would even probably ask yourself, why do I even need control? Why not accept that a bird flies through here, that fire over there is burning and it's creating a nice flame, that this tree is moving and the wind is moving through the tree and it's freaking beautiful, speaking of birds. I always like to, and people get annoyed with me, like, you always get distracted. I'm like, no, I think I'm present. So I recognize it's very hard. I wouldn't be the most qualified to give people advice. Instead of, the only thing I would say for them is step into the observer mode. Again, back into that, which is not easy. I get that most people are taught or programmed to think about things, to only think about things. We're not taught to feel, unfortunately. And we need to teach ourselves that. And that's a tough job, especially if you've lived your whole life thinking about things all the time. So it's not impossible. For some people, it's going to be harder than others. But just start by looking at control, first of all. And really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, do I have control over anything?
Mm.
And then once you juggle with that question, you can see what's going on here and step into the observer mode. There, I said it again.
Amazing. Well, we're about to jump into listener Q&A. So if you guys have questions for Allie that you would like her to answer, then go ahead and drop them in the chat. We're going to have a conversation where she's going to talk to you more directly about things you're curious about. So feel free to, this is your chance, like to get coaching. Like if you want insights from Allie about your life or what you're dealing with or what you're going through, if you have ever thought, man, it'd be so cool if Allie was my friend, then I'd ask her this, I'd ask her that, then this is the moment to jump right in and be like, hey, can you talk to me about this? Or can you explain why this or that might be happening in my world? But I have a final, very important question for you before we get into listener Q&A.
Yes.
Why do you think your pets always behave in a way on your readings that have you say something to the pet that actually pertains to the reading itself?
Because they're my babies. They're in tune with what's going on. They're in tune with me, especially. And when I'm in tune with the energy, they're like, "Oh, let me add something to it." And I'm like, "Okay, add something." I hope people get it, and most people do. It's very interesting. It's like whenever they show up, it kind of emphasizes. It's almost like a confirmation of what's happening with the energies back there. And it's like, oh, exclamation mark for this one because the cat showed up or the dog. Well, the dog not so much because he's old, but something with them. They love the energies. When I tune into energies and I bring them all up in this house, they're always around me. They're like crazy about them, and sometimes they act like little kids, but it's okay. They love it. um and I feel like I usually let them do whatever they want. They can get away with just about anything, and that allows them to not act out, to not be nasty, to not be, and they're always kind of, to me it feels like a um an extra something to the reading. Like I tune into the energies, I put them on the table, I talk about them, and then when they come, it's like, oh, you forgot about this, let me point it out for you. So it kind of feels like, yeah, it kind of feels like that a lot of the times. And 90% of the people that watch get that, and it's quite interesting. And they're loved just as much as the readings are
Oh
loved.
my
Or
gosh, yeah.
just,
People show up
yeah.
for the cats too.
Yeah, a lot of the time they're like, oh, I saw the cat and that's why I'm here. I'm like, okay, welcome.
Love it. All right. Let's get into listener Q&A. Tamara asks, I've looked into Aya and have listened to Christina Lopez's take on it as well. How does one choose a trusted source to have this experience? What filters or criteria would you use?
I saw that question and I'm glad you chose it, because that's very important. Actually, that's very important. And I, I don't know how familiar people in here are with that. Regardless, do your research well, because whoever is facilitating that, make sure they're a reliable shaman, maestro, whatever you're looking for. But because especially in South America, in parts of South America, it became quite an exploited business. And there are scammers with that too. And that's nothing to be scammed with. It's a very sacred plant. It is dangerous if done in inappropriate settings. I wouldn't recommend it doing it at home, making it like a tea and no. I've heard of cases where it got bad. It got bad and it could get bad. So you got to be very aware of and do your research quite thoroughly. Sometimes, like in my case, I didn't do any research. I was like, oh, okay, you're going, I'm going too. But I got lucky. But I've heard of places that are not, especially in South America. That's where the whole scam artistry is surrounding this. So
I mean,
make sure you
America
know
is
where
full of
you're going.
scammers too. Let's not forget the Tinder swindler and all the
Yeah.
rest.
Mhm.
But is there anything people should look for or avoid in particular that you want to make sure to mention?
Well, first of all, listen to your gut. That's
Mhm.
the best indicator. And second of all, that's the tricky part, because it's like people start to overthink, and it's like, make sure you know at least one person that's quite close to you that has experienced that place, that setting. Um, if you don't know anybody, you can try. Usually, there's all sorts of preparation before you actually go into it, so you can attend one of those and see how it feels. See how, do you trust it? Do you not? Do you? Usually, there's that being offered, so you can go in that direction. I wouldn't go randomly to it.
Mm.
Like, the one thing I wouldn't do, I wouldn't go randomly. Like, I see this, like there's this table and it says ayahuasca, come here, come get it. I got the best thing for you. No, I wouldn't do that. I would
Got
go
it.
by recommendation, or if there's no one recommending it, just do your research thoroughly. See who the shaman is, what experience they have, how long they've been, a shaman, not in the business, a shaman. Kind of go with that.
Excellent. Thank you. Jem Shahri asks, what made you decide to become a tarot reader on YouTube?
Ooh, that was very random, actually. In my opinion, the universe is like, oh, dumbass, you still don't get it. Uh, I I was driving a truck and I was listening to, as I was saying, I was going through shitty times, twin times, shadow times, nights of the soul of the nights times, whatever nights. Um, and I wasn't watching, but I was listening a lot to audiobooks or YouTube videos and all sorts of things while driving a truck. There's thousands of miles of driving, so you listen to a lot of things. And tarot was one of them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of listening to this. I just want to do it for myself. I just want to know if I'm able to do it. So that's how I started, basically. It was funny because my first reading, I got scammed. So I was like,
Whoa.
I know. It was a funny way of entering the tarot world. I'm like, really? You get scammed the first time? Like, you would quit after that. But I'm like, no. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. So
Funny.
yeah. So then I took this tarot class a month later, and it was interesting because I was like laying down cards. I was looking at them. I'm like, I'm not a talkative person in general. Now you see me talking a lot. I was quiet like nothing. I wasn't talking a word. I lay all these cards down, and I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to say about this? I don't know. I don't have words. What am I supposed to say? I don't know. And then as I did it more and more and more, it kind of started to come naturally. Like sometimes even now, one of my best friends is saying, oh, you said this in your video. And I'm like, I did? Like, that's a smart thing to say. I don't think that was me, but okay. And then she has to play it for me to, because I kind of tune into the energy and I'm out of here. Like me, Alina, minds, everything, I'm out. So the things I say, sometimes I don't even know. But it started coming and it started feeling at some point very natural. And a month later, I'm like, you know what? Since I'm starting coaching and I'm starting all of this, I didn't have a plan to do business with all of this. And I'm like, at least a few hundred people maybe are going to follow me. And then I can offer them coaching. Like a month or two later, I'm like, I can't put my coaching out there. There's so many people. I'll get overwhelmed. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, no fucking way. And Charlotte helped me out a lot. I'm sure she doesn't remember or doesn't know, but she was randomly pulling cards for people in one of her chats. And I asked, like, am I ready to give up my current job for what I think I should be doing? She said, yeah, you actually did that in a past lifetime. And I'm like, maybe that's why it's coming in naturally for me. So the next day, I gave my 2 weeks notice. Well, it was a month. I'm usually nice. I give them a month. Like, you know what, to have time to look for drivers and all that. Yeah. Like, yep, I think it's good to go. I think we're good to go here.
Wow.
I miss the truck. I miss it. For me, it was I feel like that was my first tool of healing, actually. It was very meditative and very healing. especially because it's so recent after my dad's loss and all of that. It kind of taught me to stand still in my grief and deal with it. So yeah, that's how I started, very randomly. And again, the universe is punching me like, come on, get it already. It's not random. Yeah, I know.
Well, then that brings us to the next question I found here in the chat, and I won't be able to answer all of them. I wish I could. I wish Allie had 2 hours of her life to be here with us, but I'm going to just find as many questions that actually would serve as many people as possible at this time. So the next one I'm seeing here is, how do you decipher fear from intuition?
Hmm,
Because they
that's a good
both can
one.
be so strong.
If it's intuition or
Fear.
fear. Ooh. Oh man. That's a good one. And it's going to be very hard to explain. Because they're very similar in the way that they feel.
It
I would
can
say
be.
intuition is more neutral. Intuition is usually coming from a place, the fear, for me at least, is coming from a place where my heart kind of skips a beat and it's like, you can feel something. I feel like in the body, you can feel something very different when it's fear versus intuition. And fear kind of builds up, and I can feel it especially towards my heart, because like it's beating different. Something's happening in there and it's not quite right. I feel like that, to me, I can identify as fear versus intuition. Intuition, for me, comes in more like a neutral kind of state of being. And I usually kind of hear a voice that's very neutral that says, this is what's happening, or this is what's, like when I was 18, I got into a car accident because I didn't listen to my intuition. My intuition was
Whoa.
telling me, yeah, it was a fender bender, nothing major, but it did kind of ruin my plans, because the next day I was supposed to go in a vacation, and then my dad was kind of like, what'd you do? And I'm like, I broke the car. You know. But
No vacation for me.
actually I did. That's what I was
What?
expecting. But my dad was like, yeah, okay, go. I'm like, okay, I got the best dad in the world. And he still is. Um that was when my intuition kicked in big time, because some of my friends came over to pick me up, to go out to eat something, and then bring me back home. Not a big deal. And I was in my pajamas, I was in bed, and I usually never said no to that. I'm like, okay, let's go out, let's eat, it's 10 minutes, whatever. But that one time, something in me came in and told me, you're not going anywhere. Don't go anywhere. And it was, again, that neutral kind of feeling. It wasn't any fear. It wasn't any, oh, I don't want to go. No, it was something in me, like a little inner voice that said, you're not. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I am. And then, 10 minutes later, boom, got into a car accident. And that was the last time that I said, I'm never not listening to that voice anymore, ever again. Because I feel like that voice knew what it was saying. So there's that slight difference there. And I feel like it's in the body a lot of the times. If your body starts to get unsettled, it's probably fear. If you're more neutral and your body is not responding in a probably jerky way, then I feel like that's intuition. And it's coming from different places too, but that's so freaking hard to explain. It's like, where? Because it's the difference is very small. So I feel like it's practice in the end, to figure out which is speaking to you. And I feel like a lot of us know what fear sounds like. So it's like, okay, when it sounds a little different, it's probably not fear.
Love that. Thank you. Great tips on that. I'm going to take 2 more questions. One of them is maybe a little bit of an extrapolation of something that somebody asked, but it's not the exact question. Any advice for people who need to, because I feel like especially during this year, 2022, North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio, I've already intuited that we're going to see a lot of extreme kind of energy, like polar. It's going to be very polarizing, even more polarizing than what we've experienced prior to now. What would you say What advice would you provide for someone who needs to release either loved ones or family members at this time who, are just energetically vibrating on the opposite end of the spectrum of where they're going, but I mean, you're stuck with them because they're either family or a loved one. What's the advice there?
Um, if you're stuck with them because they're family or loved ones, and I feel like you, me, a lot of us have gone already through these kinds of things. But
How do you
it's
get through the guilt of that or the pain of it?
acceptance of all of it. It's a process, and at some point, I feel like you're not going to get to that point of releasing your closest ones around you first. I feel like life is kind of preparing you for that, where friends or people you may have been in contact with constantly may have fallen off at some point. And it's kind of like a organic kind of thing, like natural. And you look at it and you recognize it as okay. But then when it comes to closer people, yeah, I wouldn't say I force necessarily. I recognize that I'm somewhere here, maybe there's somewhere someplace else, and it's like it's not matching, it's not, and I recognize that. And whenever they're trying to push me off where I'm at, I would say creating boundaries, because there's no way you can get rid of them, especially if they're family. But creating those healthy boundaries where you can identify where they're trying to, which most of the times they're not doing it on purpose, but they are, grab at your energy and pull you into theirs or whatever's happening. Um, Create an energetic boundary, and it'll be way easier to keep them where they're at. I don't feel guilty about that. Maybe I don't know. Because I feel like I'm kind of imagining it
I think
like,
that's a
they're
Leo
still.
thing. I don't know that that's a common feeling for my Leo friends. Guilt is just like not in the box of common go-tos.
But when we have guilt, we have it.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah. But because I still see them as my family. I still consider them as my family or my closest, but to me, it's like I'm envisioning this wall between the two of us that helps me, determine I'm on this side of the wall, you're on this side of the wall. We can always interact, and we can always open that door that separates us through this wall. But you're not going to break that wall with your energy. And, I'm waiting for you to climb enough so you can in a healthier way, jump over that wall. But you're not going to pull me down there, you know? So that's why I don't carry any guilt around it. Sometimes I do, and it's a deep one, especially if it's someone really close to me and I see that I'm, South Pole and they're North Pole or the other way around. I feel like I have that experience actually. But again, it's the acceptance of it's their own journey, just like this is my own journey. So that kind of helps me accept it, and I feel guilty about it, plus the Leo side with the guilt.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Very good. Um, let's see. Is there anything you saw in the chat that you want to answer?
Looking. Let's see. Yeah, I want to answer to that hug. I think that's a hug. Yeah.
Go
I
for
don't
it.
know.
What's
So
the question?
everybody, there's no question. There's just a hug.
Well, then
um,
hugs.
Everybody just stopped talking. It's like, oh, we're on the spot. We're not going to say anything anymore. Okay. Oh, see, now they're starting to ask questions like, what's your favorite food? When can I kiss Kai's tummy? And those paws. They're cracking me up. Yeah, I don't know. If you see anything, go for it. Oh, hold on. Tracking your healing. Do you see that one?
I see it. I see it. I'm curious if that's something you even do or if you're more just kind of present with it in real time.
Yeah. See, that's a question that someone that is probably more analytical would ask. Like I
Yeah,
need
I
to
don't see you doing
back
that
up.
level of analysis. I see you
No.
staying far more present. Like you get into observer mode when like the emotions get super high and things get intense. Like you stop, you slow down, you
Yeah.
space out what's happening in the moment. But in terms of going meta long term overall, I don't see you doing that as much. Would that be an accurate observation or no?
Yeah. 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 I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody had asked earlier, have you ever dealt with addiction?
Smoking.
How, like, if you, somebody had asked about addiction, and so I'm curious about your perspective on quitting addictive things, like even addicted to watching YouTube readings. A lot of people get addicted to that.
I know. Um, I
What's your
know.
advice for addiction?
Like, well, it sucks when you're trying to quit. I know that.
Hmm.
Um,
How did you even quit smoking? I know my dad had an issue with it for a long time, and he was like, "Man, I had to do a program, the whole thing. Like, I had to work at it."
I did it for the wrong reasons.
You quit
Um,
for the wrong reasons?
yeah, I did it
What
for
was your
someone else
wrong reason?
instead
Oh,
of
you quit for somebody else?
not for me. But it turned into me because it was during my transition towards, oh, let
Yeah.
me do things for myself. So that
Mm,
to me is starting something for the wrong reasons, but it helped transition me into I still smoke jewels. It's not the same as cigarettes, but I still kind of suck on those suckers. But I can't put them away for hours, days, and so on and so forth. So it's not the same thing. That was my biggest addiction. Like to me, the cigarette was part of me. It was like if I didn't have a cigarette attached to this hand right here, I would be like, what's going on? Something's wrong. Um, and then when I picked up a cigarette after a while, I'm like, this does not match. No, this does not match anymore. It's not part of me anymore. Um, and I did it just like everybody else. It's a matter of how strong you are in it, how strong-willed you are, your motivation for it, your intention. I tried gum. I tried all sorts of things. The icky tasting gum. Um, until it just happened because I feel like it's a will, a very powerful will you have to quit an addiction, and a very strong-minded, like this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna. And even then, you relapse and you go back. But going back doesn't mean you can't try it again and do it over and over again until it sticks.
mm.
Um, and it's quite ironic because you get into it so easily and it takes so much to get out of it. Um, but it's just like everything else. It's a pattern. And if you look at it as I'm repeatedly doing this, and I knew all of the consequences, all of the. I even said I want to be a trucker, smoke and die of cancer from cigarettes.
You made a
So I
declaration to
knew,
the universe, and the universe was
yeah,
like, "Yeah, we'll see."
I knew. So and during that time, by the way, I was quitting smoking too. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm not quitting now because I'm in this argument with the universe. So it's pointless because
I
I'll
dare
eventually
you to change
die.
my life,
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah. And soon after that, a few days after that, I just threw away everything, the package, the lighter, which I felt sorry about because I have sage at home. And I'm like, eh. But anyways, I know it's a tough one, but I feel like doing a lot of healing on possibly even other aspects of yourself. It kind of feels like when you raise your vibration and when you kind of position yourself vibrationally in a different place than you were, I feel like that too is going to fall off, like the relationships or the people that at some point is not going to feel as natural anymore, or something's going to be off about it, and that's your cue to go do it, to go quit. I feel like that could be a possibility because to me it didn't feel naturally anymore. The minute I raised completely out of the dying trucker position, it just started it just started feeling unnatural to me.
That's
So
really funny.
that's when I really kind of stuck to it and like went all the way. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't touch a cigarette for 3 years, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing and beautiful. We are at the hour. And like I said, I wish we had like a whole other hour to just pick Allie's brain. That would be a lot of fun. I can
Yeah,
see I can see your audience would love it. Like if you had more open Q&As and kind of open coaching kind of conversations.
I know. I know. I'm kind
When
of
you're
working on
ready.
I'm kind of working on the other channel that most people on my original channel know about. Um I'm kind of working on something structural for that where I want to like touch on a subject of healing and then possibly doing meditation or Reiki about that topic, you know. But I'm still working on my basement. Today I was like working in there and I'm like, man, I hope I don't, because you know me, when I'm in there, I forget what
Hmm.
time it is, what day
Hmm.
it is. And I'm like, I hope I get in time for Kingdom's thing. Um, because I completely forget about everything. So
Right on.
I got here. But as soon as I have that ready, the basement, I'll give more time and structure to what I want to do with the other channel. But for now, people can see me in ASTRO. And sometimes, surprisingly, once every blue moon, I go in live and people can ask questions.
So
But
good.
when I put them on the spot, they always ask me, about what kind of food I like and things like that. They're like, "Oh, we don't have questions." Um,
They just want to kick it with you. They don't really
yeah,
want to get
yeah, they
coached.
just
They just
want to
want to
chill.
hang out.
Yeah, like, you know what? We're coaching with you every day. Just chill. I'm like, okay.
Well, tell you what, guys, if you have questions for Allie that did not get answered today, Allison will go ahead and drop her spiritual life coaching channel into the chat, which she just did because she is psychic. And you want to go ahead and subscribe to that. And also subscribe to her main channel, Allie's Tarot, here on YouTube, because and hit that notification bell so that when she does go live, you are able to hang out with Allie. My name is Kay Moon. I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And on this channel, you will find new and full moon updates for the collective to use the energy in the light instead of the shadow, both for light workers and twin flames. And tomorrow will be the final day of shadow work week. I will be joined by Lana, healer medicine woman. And if you've not met Lana, you're in for a treat. She will be providing a live healing for all of us who have experienced the energies of Shadow Work Week or starting to dive into shadow work. She'll be providing that live energy healing through YouTube with us and give you the opportunity to integrate themes that may have shown up for you. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Do it now. I'm sure that if you enjoy hanging out with Allie, you might have some fun here too. It's a great community. Allie, I can't thank you enough for being here. We were lucky to get you. So thank you. I know you're busy.
Thanks for having me, and thank you to everyone, to you especially, for putting this together. It's been amazing, and to all of the beautiful souls that got together to bring in basically our own experiences, how we got our ass kicked and how we kind of dealt with it. But you know, it's beautiful work and it's hard, and a lot of the times we didn't have the resources that are out there right now. So this is amazing that you put it together. So thank you.
Right on. Thank you.